Okay. Easy. Okay, good morning, students. Are you audible? Please tell. Okay, good morning. Welcome to prestigious Medical College Gayatri Vidya Parishad, Department of Forensic Medicine. Today, I want to continue the general considerations of the toxicology. In previous class, I finished up to classification of poisons, I think. So once again, I am telling you, revealing this classification of poisons. I told you the classification of poisons according to their availability. They are animal origin, plant origin, and minerals. They are according to their availability or the source of poisons. They are classified as animal origin, plant origin, and minerals. And then according to their manner of causing death, they are ideal suicidal, ideal homicidal, suicidal, stupefying, abortifacients, arrow poisons, cattle poisons, and so on. According to the symptoms of the toxins, these chemicals or poisons produced, these are classified as corrosives. Number one is corrosives. This classification is very, very important. This can be as short notes or essay question. It will come as any of the short note form or a very short notes form or essay question in your examination. So number one is corrosives. Under corrosives, strong acids. Under strong acids or the inorganic acids or mineral acids, they are sulfuric and nitric acid and hydrochloric acids. And organic acids are carbolic, oxalic, acetic, salicylic acids. And strong alkalis, hydrates, carbonates of sodium, potassium, ammonium. All those I told you, metallic salts and irritants. You remember these classification, major classifications: corrosives, irritants, and systemic poisons, and miscellaneous. CISM. So in irritants, agricultural irritants, inorganic, under inorganic, non-metallic and metallic, mechanical, powdered glass, and organic, vegetable. Under organic, these are vegetable and animal origin, animal snake bites, venom bites, insect bites, and cantharides, like etc. Systemic poisons are cerebral, CNS depressants, CNS stimulants, and deliriants, peripheral, cardiovascular, asphyxiants. Miscellaneous poisonings are food poisoning and botulism. And hello, are you audible, students? Okay, among miscellaneous, food poisoning and botulism. So poisons may also be classified according to their morbid anatomic manifestations. That means the morphological changes are present, but there will not be any systemic symptoms. That means if any person has drunk alcohol, he may be in a condition of stupor or a euphoric condition. His anatomical position will be changed, but he will not get any toxicity in systemic changes. This is anatomic morbid conditions. Number one is no morphologic changes are present. And number example, acute CNS depressants and hypnotics. Even when any person ingested some barbiturates or any alprazolam tablets or benzodiazepines, he will be in a stage of sleepness, and he will be a semi-comatose condition. If the drug is more dose, he will be in a deep comatose condition. There will not be, and then the quantity and the dose is increased, then there will be a systemic manifestations. And systemic lesions are produced without any injury at the portal of entry of the poison. That means corrosives. If you ingest corrosive acids, there may be any no injury at the port of entry, but there will be some anatomic changes. Those are arsen, nitrobenzene, like that. Injury is present at the port of entry without systemic injuries. That means corrosions, chlorine, sulfur dioxide, they will cause the injury at the point of entry, and then they will show the anatomic morbid manifestations. So this is the classification. The classification of poisons according to their symptoms is very, very important. And according to anatomical manifestations is not that much important, but to know, I'm telling that. So what are the criminal offenses while ingesting poisons, or while anybody intend to kill the person or enemy, or anybody wants to take revenge to by means of administering poisonous substances or toxins. These comes under criminal offenses. Those are, number one is the administration of poison to another person with intent to kill, or with intent to cause serious injury, or with intent to kill, endangers the life of the person, is or criminal offenses. So any person who recklessly used these poison substances on other persons, this also comes under the offense. For stupefying the other person to facilitate a crime, that means robbery and rape. That means one person applies these or administer these toxic substances or poisons to stupefy or to produce any to produce robbery or rape or sexual assaults by administering these stupefying substances. To procure an abortion also and comes under criminal offense. That means to administer abortifacient drugs to produce a criminal abortion. And number 6 is to annoy the victim and throw poison on another person with intention to injure to him. That means vitriolage. For example, if you throw a concentrated sulfuric acid, the person may be disfigured, and it may be endangers the life of the person. Poisoning of substances may result from, without any criminal intention, the poisoning may result from the administration of a poison criminal purposes, as I told you previously, and also so many reasons. The swallowing of poison by mistake. That means if the poisons are kept in kitchen, they may be mistakenly use the kitchen. I told you in the previous class. The inhalation through ignorance, inhalation of the poisonous substance while spraying in the fields. The incorrect preparation of the medicines containing poison. The accidental taking of large dose of some therapeutic drug also causes injury to the health of the person. Excessive self-medication. That means without knowing or ignorance, the therapeutic medication also can cause if this medicine has taken in a large doses. Addiction to the drugs. Some drugs cause addiction. That means opiates, narcotic drugs, and some cannabis. All those are addiction liability. And alcohol also causes accidental injury to the body. Bites by a poisonous animal and food infected with bacteria or other toxins. Contamination of the food or adulteration of the food may be taken place in the functions or any other wedding functions or any other function halls. So bite of the poisonous animal, that means snake bites accidentally in the fields. These are all the results of poisons accidentally without any intention. What are the routes of administration of toxic substances or poisonous substances? In order of rapidity of action, that means what is the speed of action of the poisonous substances. the route of administration of poisonous substances play a very, very important role. That means inhalation poisons or gaseous substances or vaporous forms are more speedily absorbs and more and causes very immediate effects. That means if a person, for example, if a person spraying in the field, he will accidentally inhale. That means inhalation poison. It is very rapid in its action. Volatile solvents, benzene, toluene, methylene chloride, methyl chloride, these are all the examples of inhalation poisoning. The inhalation from the nostrils or from the respiratory system is very rapid. And injection into the blood vessels, direct injection, parenteral route of administration is also very, very speed. Intramuscular, subcutaneous and intradermal. Next to the order of priority or order of speedy actions of poisons or routes of administration is: number 1 is inhalation, number 2 is injection into blood vessels, number 3 is intramuscular, and number 4 is application to a wound, application to a serous surface, that means nostrils or any other natural orifices, application to a bronchotracheal mucous membrane, or directly introduction into the stomach. These are all the routes of administration. Introduction into the natural orifice, I told you, all these are the routes of administration. Application to the unbroken skin also. Then what after entering the poisonous substance into our body, what is the fate of the poison in the body? That means how it absorbs, how it assimilates, and how its action taken place in our body. The greater part of the poison is thrown out while injecting itself. That means while taking the poisonous substances, the person may vomit the poisonous substance, or it may be come out through purging. The portion absorbed is mainly deposited in a less soluble form in the liver. The portion entered into the stomach is deposited because the liver is the metabolism. All the poison metabolized in the liver, so it is deposited in the liver, and after that unabsorbed portion will enter the general circulation, and it acts and its effects takes place after entering into the general circulation. So what is the route of whatever the route of administration of the poisonous substance, either orally or intradermally or parental route or any other route of administration, some drugs are secreted into the stomach. Even though they are not taken through oral route, they will secrete into the stomach. What are those poisons? Acids will secrete even though they introduce or they administer into our body through parental route. Acids like salicylic acid, barbital, phenobarbital, and p-hydroxy propylphenol, phenylbutadiene, thiopental, all these acids will secrete into the stomach even though they administered through oral route, they administered through parental route. Bases also, theophylline, antipyrin also secreted into the stomach. Narcotics, cocaine, amphetamines can also secrete into the stomach. So after entering into our general circulation, what are the routes of elimination? Mainly the eliminating organs in our body are kidneys. So majority of the absorbed portion of the poison is eliminated through kidneys, and to some extent it is eliminated by the skin, and to other remaining part of the poisonous substance may excrete or eliminate by the bile, milk, saliva, and some portion may be excreted through feces. These are the routes of elimination. So what is meant by pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics? That means pharmacokinetics is the study of action of drug in the body over a period of time, including process of absorption, distribution, localization in tissues, and biotransformation and excretion. All this process comes under pharmacokinetics. Pharmacodynamics is the action of drugs on living organisms. This may come as ultra short notes. So what are the actions of poisons after administered into our body? These actions may be local, remote, or combined. What are the local actions of the poisons? So if any chemical substance or poisonous substance come into contact in our body, if they are corrosive like acids, strong alkalis, they may destruct the mucous membrane of our body or the skin of our body. This is local action. Congestion and inflammation by irritants and effects on motor and sensory nerves. Some examples are tingling of skin and tongue by aconite dilatation of pupils by belladonna or datura. These are the local actions. What are the remote actions? That means some poisons, they cause respiratory depression or CNS depressions immediately after taking the poison. That means they produce either by shock or acting as reflex through severe pain caused by corrosives. These corrosive acids, after entering or absorbed in our general circulation, they immediately cause shock. This is remote action of the poison. So cantheroids and kidney produces nephritis, nux vomica acting at the spinal cord. Nux vomica is a spinal poison. It produces the tetanic convulsions. Like that, the remote actions will be produced by these poisons. Combined actions, both local and remote actions, will be produced by some poisons like carbolic acid, oxalic acid, phosphorus, etc. have local and remote actions. So what are the, after entering into our body, what are the causes modifying action of poisons? Some conditions, some factors modifying the action of poisons. What are those? Number one is quantity. That means you can easily understand the quantity. If the quantity is more, the severity is more. If the quantity is less, the severity is less. Like that. So number one is quantity. And if a person takes more quantity, the severity of the effect of the poison into our body is very, very severe. So the form, that means the physical state of the poison substance available, or the physical state of the poison the person ingested, it also depends on the physical state of the poisonous substance. Poisons acts most rapidly when gaseous state, then solids, and next order is liquids, and next order is solids. So by chemical combination, that means these poisonous substances combines with another chemical, they forms into a inactive substances by chemical reaction. That means, for example, silver nitrate mixed with hydrochloric acid and forms silver chloride, which is harmless. By harmless, the salt of the silver nitrate is harmless, but silver nitrate is, and hydrochloric acid as a corrosive poison, and silver nitrate also strong poisons. Both are strong poisons. When mixed with each other, they form a insoluble salt of silver chloride, which is harmless. That means these two more harmful poisons combines and forms a chemical reaction and insoluble salt, which is harmless. Like that, by forming and reacting with the other chemical, some chemicals, some poisons will form as inactive or harmless poisons. And mechanical combination. That means if a poisonous substance combined with a mechanical substance, another substance, it produces less harm. That means if a small dose of concentrated mineral acid, that means H2SO4 or hydrochloric acid, administered into body, it produces corrosive action. But if it is mixed with water, that diluted, concentrated, either if it is mixed with water or any other liquid to dilute the concentrated acid, it is harmless. It produces less harm. Mode of administration also affects the action of the poison. The rapid action will be seen whether it is administered through inhalation, gaseous stage, or oral route or parenteral route. I told you earlier, the inhalation route is very, very faster than oral administration. So if an active dose by mouth is considered as a unit, then the oral route, if a person takes a poisonous substance by oral route, it is very, very speed. Then if it is taken through rectal route, it will be slow. Like that. It will be, if it is taken by dermal route, it will be less harmful. That means delayed effects will be seen. Like that, the route of mode of administration also has an action of factor affecting the produce the toxic effects of the poison. And next is condition of the body. The condition of the body also plays an important role to the action of the poisonous substances. Condition of the body, that means age of the person. This age of the person has two extremities. The children below 22 years of age or 5 years of age are very susceptible, and the older age above 60 years or above 50 plus are more vulnerable to produce grave symptoms. And next is idiosyncrasy. That means the action of the drug varies from person to person. If one poisonous substance is very toxic to one person, it is less toxic to another person. That means one poisonous substance is very produce anaphylactic reaction to one person, and it will not produce anaphylactic reaction to another person. It is known as idiosyncrasy. And habit, that means, well, if a person has habit of taking this poison very minute quantities, this person is habituated to that drug. That means if a person is taking opium or any heroin or any other psychotropic drugs, this person is habituated to take the drug, and he is ability to tolerate that drug. That means if a person is habituated to drink alcohol every day, he is more tolerable capacity to tolerate this alcohol. So it produces lesser action on this habituated person. State of health also state of health also is a factor of action of the poisonous substance. That means a healthy person tolerates better than a diseased person. Sleep and intoxication. The action of poison is delayed if a person goes to sleep soon after taking it. It is varies. That means if a person has taken benzodiazepine in a small quantity, if he goes immediately sleeping, thus his metabolic rate is lowered and absorption and assimilation is lower. That is the meaning of this. But if he has taken corrosive acid or any other toxic material, severe toxic poisonous substance, it has no role on the action of the person, either sleep or any other position. Cumulative action. Poisons which are eliminated slowly. That means some poisons has the capacity of eliminating from our body very slow quantities, very minute quantities. These produce very delayed effects on the body of the person who ingested the poison. So after study all these things, what are the types of poison? This is very important question to you in your examination point of view. Types of poisoning are, first, fulminant poisoning. That means if a person takes very large, very massive quantity of the toxic substance or poisonous substance, it produces severe effects immediately, even though the person will die without producing the signs and the symptoms. That this is the fulminant poisoning. And then acute poisoning. Here, number one is acute poisoning. Okay, it is caused by an excessive single dose or taking several small doses of a poison taken over a short interval of time. That means if a person has taken single large dose or many smaller doses taken over a short intervals of time. That means if any person takes the because of its taste or any other adverse effect of the poison, the person takes smaller doses very quickly and it will produce severe symptoms at a time, sudden onset of the symptoms. This is acute poisoning. Chronic poisoning is caused by smaller doses over a period of long time, resulting gradual symptoms. Gradual onset of the symptoms is the chronic poison. The chronic poisons are mainly very, very important slow poisoning drug is arsenic, antimony, phosphorus, and opium. And subacute poisoning shows the features of both acute and chronic poisoning. I told you the fulminant poisoning is produced by a massive dose and that occurs very rapidly without showing the symptoms also. These are the types of poisoning. And what is parasuicide? That means attempted suicide or suicide gesture. That means if persons pretending suicide, that means they are acting by taking poisonous substance. They will pretend. That means they will act. That means they will inform they are committing suicide by taking this poisonous substance. They will inform by phone call to their friends or to their relatives or anybody, and they will attempt suicide. That means they will not ingest the poison, but they will apply the poison externally by means of he will not swallow, but he will apply around the mouth or around. He may pour on his clothes. So if anybody comes and smell, oh, this person has taken, and he may draw attention. His intention is to draw attention of the relatives or friends or parents. So it is parasuicide. Diagnosis of poisoning. So diagnosis of poisoning is very, very important. After taking, after administering or any homicidal effect or suicidal or stupefying or abortifacient, any type of poisoning, whether intention of killing or suicidal, committing suicide, any or suicidal gesture or parasuicide, all these, how to diagnose? There are many natural diseases produces these symptoms of taking poison. The symptoms or mimics the poisoning symptoms. Poisoning symptoms are mimics the so many natural disease symptoms. Those are normally, these symptoms are you may see the altered consciousness. Number one is altered consciousness, and number two is depression of the CVS or respiratory depression, and also dehydration due to loss of electrolytes or vomiting or acute intestinal disorder after ingestion of the poisons. These will produce hyperemia or any other congestion, or all those natural symptoms will mimics the poison. So how to diagnose? If a person acts, I told you the suicidal gesture or attempt to suicide or parasuicide, he accidentally, the intention is to draw the attention of the relatives or the parents, or he may pretend, but accidentally some poison may enter into his stomach. He may lands in a semi-conscious state. So how to, or he may act without entering the poisonous substance, he may act. That means how to diagnose these, how to differentiate really poison enters into the body, really symptoms are due to poison, or he is acting. How to differentiate? As a doctor, you should differentiate the mimicking, pretending symptoms and actual symptoms of the poisoning. If a person is pretending that he has taken poison, he may be half walk, he may be half dragged by some of his relatives or parents to the hospital. If you ask the patient after lying on the bed you should examine the patient by asking questions or by doing vital signs, or immediately you have to pinch the his extremities, or pain, or is he responding the painful stimulus or not. You should test. You should test the person whether he is really semi-comatose or unconscious condition, or he is acting. How to test? You should pinch the surfaces of the person, either nipples or genitalia. If you pinch, if he feels the pain or he is acting pain, you can differentiate as a medical person. Or if you lift the one upper limb and suddenly drop, if he is really unconscious, then it will suddenly falls. If he is acting, this upper limb will slowly settles down. So it is one of these are all the tests. If you see the if you try to open the lower jaw of the mouth, you will tightly pressurize the mouth if he is retained. If the person really unconscious, then it will be easily open. Like that, you can test the you can diagnose the person whether he is really in a stage of comatose or semi-conscious or retaining the symptoms. And also another tests are, if your clenched fist rubs against the sternum, this is very painful. If he is really unconscious or semi-conscious, he will not experience that pain. If he is acting, he will definitely he should not tolerate that pain. You have to rub your clenched fist on the sternum of the person. It is also one of the chest. Like that, you can differentiate the real symptom of the real unconsciousness, or whether he is retaining or producing symptoms. So how to diagnose a poisoning in a living person? So all these I told you, there is no single symptom. So many symptoms are characteristic of poisoning. Some natural diseases also produce the symptoms. And how to suspicion of poisoning. And also there are some clues. Whenever you receive a poisoning case, you will observe some clues. Those are: number one, these are not in your book, kindly note. Some clues you have to observe the person, or you should examine the patient to reveal these clues. Number one is ocular clues. That means some changes in the eye. That means immediate change in the eye. If the person is landing in coma or semi-comatose condition, you test the reaction of the pupil and the size of the pupil. Normally, the size of the pupil is 3 to 4 mm. But if some poisons constrict the pupil and some poisons cause dilatation of the pupils, these causes are due to the action of the cholinergic innervation of the this optic nerve and also sympathomimetic drugs. The cause of mydriasis is sympathetic stimulation, and miosis is cholinergic innervation. And also these causes are these clues are very important. If you test the pupillary size and the reaction of the pupil to light is very important. Some poisons produce these symptoms. Then next clue is olfactory clues. That means some poisons produce smell. If you smell the mouth, some poisons produce smell, distinct smell. That means H2S, hydrogen sulfur, produce rotten egg smell, and garlic smell produced by the phosphorus poisoning. Like that, you should perceive some smell, so that you can suspect this person has taken poisoning. And olfactory clues. Then dermal flues. That means some poisons produce eczematous dermatitis or any other rash on the skin. So you can observe the skin. Those are dermal flues. And also some poisons produce clues in the mouth, oral cavity, oral clues. That means some corrosives produce desquamation of the epithelium of the or the mucous membrane of the oral cavity and injury to the oral cavity. So if you observe these clues externally immediately, and you can come into a conclusion that this person has taken some poisonous substance. How to suspect? So after examining all these clues, you can suspect if the symptoms appear suddenly in a healthy person, you can suspect. If a person is healthy and he produces symptoms of toxic symptoms, suddenly he produces symptoms, then you can suspect this person has ingested poison. The symptoms appear immediately or within a short period after food or drink. You can suspect. You can suspect the person if the symptoms are uniform in character and rapidly increasing in severity. When several persons eat or drink from same source, that means if a large group of persons are developing the symptoms of vomitings and diarrhea, they are present in a wedding annual function or any other function in a function hall, or they develop the food adulteration or food contamination, and they produce the same symptoms. The group of persons produce the gastroenteritis. Then you can suspect. All suffer from similar symptoms. The discovery of poison in food taken in the vomit or excreta. If the person vomited or excreta, the poison can be detected in those by chemical analysis. It is the absolute proof of the person has taken poisonous substance. So according to, after suspecting, the symptoms also prove this person has taken poisonous substance. Though if the person sudden onset of abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and collapse also suggestive of poisoning. The sudden onset of coma with constriction of pupils or dilatation of the pupils, either of the ocular clues, will suggest the person has poisoning. The sudden onset of convulsions or comatose condition also proves the person has taken poison. Delirium with dilated pupils, I told you. Paralysis, especially lower motor neuron paralysis, also suggests. The jaundice and hepatocellular failure, oliguria, persistent cyanosis, and rapid onset of the neurological or gastrointestinal illness are suggestive of the person has poisoning. So what are the symptoms of chronic poisoning patient? That means the symptoms are exaggerated after the administration of suspected food or fluid or medicine. If a person takes some suspected food, that means if he is poisoning by intention by another person, same poison material is ingesting regularly through his food or his drink. The symptoms are exaggerated if the dose reaches its maximum or optimal level. So, and malaise, depression, gradual deterioration of general condition also suggestive of chronic poisoning. Repeated attacks of diarrhea and vomiting also suggests. When the patient removed from his usual surroundings, the symptoms disappear. This also proves the person has poisoning. So diagnosis of the poisoning in the dead. How to diagnose a poisoning person? I want to tell you in this context, I want to tell you at this juncture, the treatment of poisoning. After diagnosis, immediately how to treat the patient. But in our textbook, we have to follow the textbook of Narayan Reddy. He has given the diagnosis of poisoning in the dead. So I am telling this, but I want to tell the treatment of poisoning in the next class. So to follow the order of subject given in the textbook, I am proceeding this diagnosis of poisoning in the dead. So how to diagnose the patient died due to poisoning. Collect all the information from the inquest report. You should collect the inquest report and history from the relatives of the deceased. After collecting all this information, if you enter the mortuary, the person or the deceased or the dead body is lying on the mortuary table in a supine position and with covering of the some cloth or any blanket or anything, and you should examine externally what is the cloth covered the deceased person. You also note that, and after removing the covering of the dead person or deceased, you should examine the dead body from the head to toe. So all the external surface should be external appearances should be noted in your mortuary report. So all the external surfaces should be examined due to stain marks or vomits or any feces, any material on the cloths should be examined, or any other blood stains examined, any other stains on the surface of the body should be examined. If the person is unidentified body, you should examine, you should identify the body by the parameters you have already studied in your identification chapter. That means if the deceased has any tattoo mark or any other identifying features, you should note the black moles or any other injuries. All the identifying features should be noted in your external examination, and then proceed to the next postmortem staining and the color changes produced by the postmortem staining. So what are the color changes of the skin and mucous membranes? So many poisoning substances produce their significant colors of their significance. That means they produce each chemicals or each poisoning substance produce certain color as postmortem stain. For example, sulfuric and hydrochloric acid produce gray color, nitric acid produce brown color, hydrofluoric acid produce reddish brown color, and carbolic acid produce grayish white color, and oxalic acid produce gray blackened by blood. Creosoles produce brown leathery, caustic alkalis produce grayish white, mercury chloride bluish white, zinc chloride whitish, chromic acid and potassium chromate produce orange leathery discoloration, color changes. This is the changes of the skin by the poisoning substances. What is the color of postmortem staining? In certain poisons like phosphorus and acute copper, the skin of the postmortem staining shows dark brown or yellow color. Poisoning by carbon monoxide produce cherry red color of postmortem staining. Poisoning by nitrites and aniline nitrobenzene, acetaminide, bromides, chlorides produce chocolate colored postmortem staining due to the formation of methemoglobin. Poisoning by nitrites, this is very important. Chocolate brown colored postmortem staining is seen in nitrites and bromides, chlorides, nitrobenzene. Cherry red colored postmortem staining is seen in poisoning by carbon monoxide. And smell from the mouth and the nostrils. Substances, I told you in the beginning, some poisons produce certain smell. Garlic-like odor produced by phosphorus, arsenic gas, arsenic thallium, and tellurium. Sweet or fruity color produced by the ethanol or alcohol or chloroform and nitrites. This smell, if you perceive the smell from the mouth and the nostrils, these are the poisoning substances produce their characteristic odor. Acrid smell produced by paraldehyde, rotten eggs smell produced by hydrogen sulfide, fishy or musty odor produced by zinc phosphide, and cyanides, phenol, opium, or the camphor produces their individual odors. The natural orifices, examples, nostrils, mouth, rectum, vagina, show the presence of poisonous material or signs of poisons used. If a person is used as abortifacient drugs, you can find the drug at the vaginal or the pelvic area. Look for injection marks, and skin should be examined for lesions, hyperkeratosis or pigmentation. Any evidence of marks of violence should be noted. All this should be noted in your external examination, such as bruises, external violence, marks of bruises, and any other injuries, lacerations, abrasions should be noted. Next, what are the internal examination of the postpartum examination of the body or the deceased? This is very, very important. Internal examination. After complete external examination, you should open the cavities of the body. You should dissect the deceased body and examine the changes seen in the internal organs. Before going to the opening the cavities of the deceased, you should first smell of the body. Every cavity you have to perceive the smell after opening. Then you should examine the cavities. First, you should open the skull cavity, and the smell of the brain should be noted. Certain poisons will give specific odor, and then after opening, then you should examine the tongue, mouth for evidence of any inflammation or erosion or staining due to corrosives or irritants. You should examine the mouth and oral cavity. Esophagus. Next, you should examine the esophagus. That means corrosive alkalis produce marked softening and discoloration of the mucous membrane. And upper respiratory tract. Examine the larynx, trachea, and bronchi for evidence of the volatile irritants, inhaled poisons matter. Stomach. It is very, very important organ. You have to tie the upper end of the stomach and lower end at the pylorus region and dissect the stomach, and by placing the stomach hole on the dissecting table, and you should cut the outer curvature along the outer curvature of the stomach and open the stomach and examine the rugae and the mucosa of the stomach, internal muscularis mucosa of the stomach. You should examine the stomach for these following points. Hyperemia. What is hyperemia? You all know. That means hyperemia is the increases flow of blood to the tissues. That produces a reddish color. So the hyperemia of the mucous membrane caused by an irritant poison is usually patchy. So hyperemia, I told you, due to increased flow of blood to the tissues show the redness of the color is reddening. Reddening of the tissues due to increased flow of blood to the tissues is called hyperemia, and you have to examine the mucous membrane of the stomach for hyperemia. Hyperemia caused by the disease uniformly spread over the whole surface and not in patches. But in poisonous substances, this hyperemia is in a patchy order. Putrefactive changes also alter the color of the stomach. This poisoning due to destructive changes. So, how to differentiate whether it is the hyperemia is formed due to putrefactive changes, or hyperemia due to normal disease, or hyperemia due to poisonous substance? This histological examination will differentiate by these three differentiating features. This hyperemia is caused either due to poisonous substance, or either due to normal disease, or either due to putrefactive changes. Colors other than red color. Due to poisonous substance, the hyperemia is crimson red color. Crimson red color. Other colors other than red are produced by some of the poisonous substances. For example, mercury causes slate colored stain. Slate colored hyperemia. Arsenic, white particles of hyperemia. Strong sulfuric acid, acetic and hydrochloric acids produce blackened char on the wall of the mucosa of the stomach. Nitric acid causes yellow color of hyperemia. Carbolic acid produce buff or white color and shriveling. Cresol produce brown colored hyperemia. Copper produces blue or green colored hyperemia. All these changes should examine in the stomach. After hyperemia, you should examine whether the mucosa of the stomach has softened or not. Softening changes. Corrosives and irritants produce immediate contraction of the musculus and produce the softening of the muscularis mucosa of the stomach. Softening of the mucous membrane of stomach is caused by especially corrosive poisons, chiefly alkaline corrosives. Remember this point, softening of the mucous membrane of the stomach is chiefly produced by corrosive poisons, chiefly alkaline corrosives. It is also seen in mouth, throat and esophagus, and in disease it is limited to the stomach and is usually found at its cardiac end. But softening due to putrefaction begins in most dependent parts of the stomach. And also ulcers. You should examine the ulcers. Ulceration due to corrosives or irritant poisons should be examined. Any ulcer, you should differentiate whether this ulcer is produced due to gastritis or poisoning substance. Ulcers from the disease usually seen on the lesser curvature, and the margins are well defined and thickened. This is the important feature whether the ulcer is formed by natural disease. And perforation. You have to examine any perforation is present in the stomach or not. Perforation is occasionally observed when the strong mineral acids had been taken. That means H2SO4, if a person has taken concentrated H2SO4, this perforation will develop. I have seen in my house agency period one university student aged about 23 years has taken H2SO4, and the parents has brought that that girl to the surgery OP. At that time, she is very comatose and very feeble pulse, BP is low, almost in a terminal stage of life. Then the chief of the first unit surgery professor asked, taken the consent of the parents to do laparotomy. Otherwise, she may die within seconds or within minutes. Within few minutes, she will die. The professor has taken the consent to open the abdomen by laparotomy. We are all house surgeons at that period and seen that case. After opening, the stomach was charred, and it is the whole stomach is reduced to ash. The patient has expired on the table itself. Before doing the laparotomy, the girl has died due to the perforation of the stomach due to corrosive effect of the concentrated sulfuric acid. So perforation is caused due to the concentrated sulfuric acids. Ammonia can cause perforation of the stomach also. Acid escapes into the abdomen and cause peritonitis. And later stage, this is later stage. If the person has taken low quantities of the concentrated mineral acids, this concentrated low quantity will produce perforation of the stomach and spilled into the abdominal cavity and produces and damages the another visceral organs and produces peritonitis, and the patient may die. So perforation is very, very important due to mineral acids. What are the contents of the stomach? After opening the stomach, you should collect the contents of the stomach and send to the forensic science laboratory for chemical analysis. You open the stomach, I told you, at the greater curvature and examine the fragments of poison adherent to the mucosa of the stomach and collect the food material remained in the stomach, and the all the liquid present in the stomach should be collected in a container, and you should keep the container in a if refrigerator is available, you keep the container in the refrigerator and send to the and send it to the chemical analysis to the forensic science laboratory. If the poison enters into the stomach, if the stomach is filled with food, and that means if a person takes poisonous substance after taking the food, then the poisonous substance or the poisonous material is filled in the lesser curvature of the stomach. Are you observing this diagram? If the stomach is filled with food material, then the poisonous, that means if a person ingested poisonous substance after taking the food, then the poisonous material or poisonous substance or chemical substance, toxic substance fill the lesser curvature of the stomach and causes the damage along the lesser curvature of the stomach, and it will fills later the pyloric end and next to the cardiac end. Like that, the effects will be developed in full stomach. If it is stomach is empty, then the corrosive or any other poisonous substance produce dangerous effects or its toxic effects at the pyloric end or lower end of the stomach. Next, after examining the stomach, you should examine the duodenum and intestines. The strong acid produce perforation and it will goes to the enters into the duodenum and small intestine and produces changes in the intestines, and it produces changes in the ascending colon and transverse colon and produces colitis. It may mimics the bacillary dysentery. That means one poison, that means mercury, mimics the the poison. If the person taken mercury as a poison, this produces a symptoms mimics the acute bacillary dysentery. Liver. What are the changes in the liver? That means some poisons like artesunate, phosphorus, chloroform, or dinitotoluene or produces liver necrosis. Arsenic, carbon tetrachloride, amanita of halides produces fatty liver. Jaundice produced by some poisons like phosphorus and potassium chloride. And what are the changes in the respiratory system? Edema of the glottis and congestion will be seen. Desquamation of the mucous membrane of the trachea, bronchi can be seen due to corrosive poisonings. And kidneys, parenchymal changes and degenerative changes of the parenchyma of the kidney will be found in irritant metallic poisons and cantharidin poison. And what are the changes seen in the heart? Subendocardial hemorrhages will be seen in the left ventricle due to arsenic, acute arsenic poisoning. And after, you should examine the bladder in males and the vagina and the uterus in the females should be examined. Any abortifacient drugs are found in the uterus or vagina, you should examine. Bladder also examine, because some poison can be eliminated through the urine. So it will urine preservation of blood and urine is very, very important, and some poisons are found in urine also. So blood is main constant to confirm after chemical analysis what is the poison present in the person. So no poison kills the person without producing symptoms of illness. So after collection of this blood and urine and the stomach contents, you have to send the parts of liver piece, kidney piece, all these visceral organs, vital organs should be sent to the chemical analysis. Blood, urine, bile, vitreous and are placed in a glass containers but not in plastic containers. These fluids can, if these are stored in a plastic containers, they can be bleached out, and they can form a polymers from the wall of the bottle. So these should be preserved in glass containers. So some substances from the stomach may be diffused into the lungs. That means from the stomach, some poisons may diffuse in the left lobe of the stomach. So because of the duodenum and the lower part of the stomach or above the left lobe, so some drugs can be diffused into the lower lobe of the lungs, left upper lobe of the lung. So these diffusion of poisonous substances from the stomach are not directly entered, but they are entered on the liver surface by diffusion. In a living person, the concentration of the poisonous substance is lower in the venous blood as compared to the arterial blood. After death, variation of concentration is caused by destruction of enzymatic and microbiological activity. So, what are this is the chemical analysis. That means blood, urine, bile, all these substances and some visceral parts from the kidney and the liver should be sent to the forensic science laboratory for chemical analysis. So information supplied to the laboratory. So some information the doctor should, all these are the duties of the doctor while doing the postmortem examination of a poisoning body. So you should submit along with the samples, some information should be sent to the forensic science laboratory. All the doctors should send who will do the postmortem examination the brief details and symptoms of the person by studying the case sheet of the person or the case sheet of the dead person. The poison taken is not known whether the poison, what is the poison taken by this person. If you know or not known, you can write in the report. History obtained from the family members and empty containers found at the scene, autopsy findings, all these materials should be supplied to the laboratory along with the preservatives, along with the samples for chemical analysis. So next, the analytical procedure. All this analytical procedure was has been done in forensic science laboratory, but it is not in your examination point of view. I am not telling, but it is to know what is happening in the forensic laboratory. To know this procedure, I am telling this. For toxicological analysis, poisons can be divided into 5 groups. What is the analysis? Before doing the dividing these 5 groups, how to analyze this samples of biological material of the dead person? What is the analysis? This toxicological analysis of biological tissue involves 3 steps. Number 1 is separation of the drug from the biological tissue. If you send the blood or urine or any other liver or kidney or brain tissue or muscle tissue, the drug should be separated from that biological sample. It is the first step. And next step is purification of the drug. After separation from the biological tissue, the drug should be purified. And after that, third step is analytical detection and quantification of the drug. This is done by thin layer chromatography, gas chromatography, or mass spectrometry, or UV spectrometry. All these procedures, 3 procedures, will be done at forensic science laboratory. So, according to toxicological analysis, the poisons are divided into 5 groups. Number 1 is gases. Number 2 is steam volatile poisons. Gases are separated from blood or lungs by simple aeration. And number 2 is steam volatile poisons, include both organic and inorganic substances separated from biological materials by steam distillation. Gases are separated by simple aeration. Steam volatile poisons are separated by steam distillation procedures, and metallic poisons are separated from the biological tissue by dry ashing procedure and wet ashing procedure. Group 4 substance non-volatile organic compounds are separated. These are non-volatile organic poisons are alcohol and water soluble poisons, and miscellaneous group group 5 is miscellaneous. These includes all substances which are not classified in any of the above 4 groups. These are to know what is the procedure going in the forensic science laboratory. I am telling this is not much important to your examination point of view. So what is the cause of death? So cause of death is determined by the dose of the drug. Dose of the drug. The minimal usual fatal dose and minimal lethal dose and the lethal dose. That means what is the usual fatal dose? To assess and rate the toxicity of the drug, it is consider to assess and rate the toxicity of the drug. You should consider the what is the dose of the drug. So therapeutic index or the ratio of the toxic, that means what is the quantity of the dose which produce the toxicity, how much dose produce the, how much less dose or greater dose, what is the quantity of the dose that produces the toxic effects on the body is therapeutic index. So lethal dose, how to calculate the lethal dose? Lethal dose is the dose that kills the person. Minimum lethal dose is the smallest dose that kills the person. Usual lethal dose or usual fatal dose is the to assess and rate the toxicity of the toxic substance, poisonous substance. Assess and grade the toxicity of the poisonous substance is the usual fatal dose. What is the Young's rule? The dose of a drug, the lethal dose of the drug for a child. This is the procedure to calculate the lethal dose of drug for a child is Young's rule. Adult dose into adult age in years is equal to result is divided by the sum of the child's age plus 12 gives the dose of the lethal dose of the drug. This is Young's rule. You can get by heart in your textbook. Toxic and lethal drug levels. So the time is over. Okay, I will finish within 5 minutes. So what are the toxic and lethal drug levels? This is all for knowing, to know, I am telling, but it is not that much important. Fatal concentrations of the poisons vary. These concentrations are vary depending upon the analytical techniques, which vary widely both in method and accuracy. While taking the biological samples or analytical techniques may vary. So the fatal concentrations are vary according to the analytical techniques and site of sampling and fatal level being introduced into the body. And so these variations are due to unusual susceptibility to the drug and combination of drugs interact with each other, and some pre-existing natural disease may contribute to the death. These variations of the toxic doses are due to variations of the analytical techniques and site of sampling and fatal levels. And these causes are due to unsusceptibility. All these not important, you know, you can read. So I will tell you in the next class. So I will tell you very important portion of this chapter, that is duty of the doctor and how to manage a poisoning case. I will tell you. Okay, thank you, students.